A Song for Silas by Lori Wick. Epilogue. Neillsville, Wisconsin, spring 1890. Amy Cameron stood beneath the big oaks, not really focused in on the beautiful view. The position of the barn blocked the house, but Amy knew it was there. Her father and her husband were down in the house. Supper was over, and they were discussing the planting. Her husband. Amy felt a chill go through her each time she thought the words. It was just a year before that she and Silas had faced each other in the barn on a very rainy night. Little did she know how her life would change with the break in her father's leg and Silas's arrival. And to think she had almost ignored God's leading and let him get away. But she had been so afraid of being hurt again. True, Thomas and Silas were nothing alike, but there was yet another factor. Amy had not wanted to believe her father could live without her. Even as Silas had shared about his own struggle with pride had brought Amy to her knees. She had known the day he left it had been a mistake. But Amy would not listen to her heart, and over the next few weeks had become more and more miserable. It was Grant who turned things around. Amy found her gentle, kind-spoken father furious with her. "Look at you," he had shouted at her. "You're pale and losing weight. And for what? To stay here and take care of me when the man you love is waiting to share his life with you?" Amy had stared at him, her mouth open wide, but Grant wasn't done yet. "I've never thought your skull thick, Amy, but I'm beginning to think it's going to take an oak beam along the side of your head before you see the truth. You're fighting God in this, and what you're fighting is your very own happiness. You've hurt Silas terribly, and to be very frank, I'm ashamed of you." Amy stood on the bluff, remembering his words and how they had hurt. Her father had held her, and she'd cried, knowing he was right. Thanksgiving had come, and to the astonishment of the Nolans, they had been invited to the Randall mansion. Bev had come before the judge soon after Silas left, and many had complained about the privileges of the rich when they heard about how light her sentence was, almost non-existent. They were somewhat mollified over the high fines she was ordered to pay. The judge had ruled that Bev pay over double what had been taken from the different farms. Only Grant and Amy had understood Aunt Bev's joy in this order, when on Thanksgiving she had told them the news with tears in her eyes. Amy now reflected on that time. The day had been a good one, but Silas was most definitely missing. Now, however, they were husband and wife, and at the moment Amy could come up with only one cloud on the horizon. Even as she thought of it, tears stung her eyes. Silas picked that moment to join his wife on the bluff. Amy didn't turn, and Silas's arms came around her from behind, his chin resting atop her soft blonde hair. Silas heard Amy sniff. "Talk to me, Amy." "I'm not pregnant." Silas began to wish he'd never shared with Amy his great desire to fill their house with children. She was bound and determined to give him a child in their first year of marriage, and though many families started this way, it certainly wasn't written anywhere that this and this only was the correct procedure. "Amy, we'll have children, I promise you." "Silas, how can you possibly make such a promise?" "Well," he thought a minute, "if we don't have children of our own, we'll take in a bunch of orphans." "Do you really feel that way?" Amy turned in his arms so she could see his face. "Would it really not bother you if I couldn't give you children?" "It really wouldn't bother me. God gave me you, and that's what's most important to me." Amy smiled up at him in relief, and he pressed a kiss to her forehead. "We need to go back to the house and spend more time with your dad. This visit has gone by too fast. We're headed home tomorrow." Amy nodded, not at all upset with the idea of leaving for Baxter. Envisioning the house where she and Silas had lived as husband and wife for over 5 months, she linked her arm through his for the walk down the hill and began to sing.